everyone, welcome to Unlock HR with the D'Souza sisters, where we bring you practical HR advice for your startup or small business. I'm Desma D'Souza.
And I'm Elrona Silva D'Souza.
And today we're going to uncover the key responsibilities and skills required for a line manager to succeed. This line manager can be a business owner. A lot of the times they're first-time line managers. So in this episode, we're going to cover everything from just having a simple one-to-one with your team member to motivation to communications. We're going to talk about it all. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right. So speaking of essential skills, right? Let's start with the very, very beginning. Now, not all small business owners or startup entrepreneurs are people managers. So let's talk about what are the essential skills needed for someone to wear that line manager hat in addition to all the several other hats that they have to wear in a business.
Yes. So when you're right in saying that as a business owner or a founder, you're not just leading the organization or the business, but you are also expected to give direction on to your team and, somehow work on bringing that vision into like something that is meaningful to the team as well. And this is not something that you can wing it.
Or you shouldn't wing it,
and
rather.
you shouldn't wing it either. Like this is something that you have to put time and effort into doing. It may seem like you've got it all in your mind, and therefore when you speak it comes out. It doesn't always do that. You have to articulate it well. You have to rely on tools to help you amplify that message even more, and you have to build a full toolkit of skills, of competence and ability and attitude to be able to not only be a business owner, but also a line manager to your business, because these to your business team members. It's not the same. Being an employer and a business owner is not the same as being a line manager. As you said, right? There are different hats that you wear, but they are all hats that you wear at the same time. So you kind of have to switch over all the time. So I think the key skill is, first of all, to recognize that as a business owner, I also play a role as a line manager, and I have to keep my business owner mindset away and work towards getting the team to efficiently, effectively, and happily drive what they need to do to get my business to succeed. So that's the bridge that you have to form.
I think what happens is, like a lot of small business owners, they have small teams and they understand their vision, and in their mind, they know what it's all about.
Correct.
And they somehow think, or don't necessarily consciously think that, or think, how should I articulate this to my team members? They sometimes probably expect it to be done by osmosis, which obviously isn't a case, right? It takes me back to like when parents tell their kids, use your words. And I think this is a very important time to use your words. Because for whether you're a small business or big business or medium business, for an employee, it doesn't matter. Their communication or their relationship with their line manager is literally their whole employment experience.
Exactly. And you need to be vocal. You have to be vocal in the way you communicate your message. You may use multiple channels of communication, and you should use multiple channels of communication, but it doesn't hit home as strongly as when you vocalize it and you talk about it and you get excited about it, and that feeling is very palatable and very something that can be absorbed by employees. That energy that comes through is something that you can once you vocalize and once it's echoing in the office or something, it's that energy that kind of comes through to employees, and they get equally excited.
That's one skill, right? Communication. What other skills should line managers have, especially in a small business, that would differentiate them from, that would prepare them to lead a team that they typically wouldn't have?
So as line managers, you are managing a lot of ambiguity
Yeah.
as a line manager, because you know, as much as we say you have to compartmentalize and wear different hats and so on, in a thought alone, you're thinking about as a business owner and as a manager, and you have to
Yeah.
speak to an employee. So
Yeah.
like, it's not as easy as saying
Yeah.
compartmentalize. It takes practice and so on. So I think giving yourself that concession that, I'm learning this,
Yeah.
and I'm, going to falter, and be accepting of making learning on the job almost, right?
Yeah.
So that acceptance and that forgiveness, the self forgiveness as well. So I think first and foremost, while you work on your communication skills, you also have to work on yourself and be confident that I am learning
Yeah.
this experience and I'm going to help my team. The whole outcome, the objective is to do better,
Yeah.
and to help my team deliver,
Yeah.
and to help my team stay happy while they do that as well, because happy employees bring profits.
Yeah.
So this is what is important. So it's not easy, but it is something that over practice gets better and better.
Right.
You can look for mentors, you can look for coaches to help you, sharpen that skill, sharpen that message, and build on that as well. So skills are something that you develop and something that you can cultivate, as long as you introspect and recognize where you stand in that.
Yeah. So, and that's great for the beginning, right? But that
Yeah.
always can't be the case as you move forward in your journey as a small business owner and you're the default line manager, or you bring a management layer in your business to sort of manage, or, even if you have one supervisor or one, operations manager or something like this, they then become, you then have to ensure that they have the right skills to be able to lead a team, right? So having very clear communication skills is really, really important. Being able to navigate ambiguity, like you said, is key, and not getting flustered or too kind of overwhelmed with the ambiguity, because this is just the nature of startups and
Sure.
small businesses,
Yeah.
right? What else can we think of, like from our experience?
Yeah, so a lot of things can be simplified, in some ways, because as a business owner, you're making sure that the employment is sorted. But as a line
Yeah.
manager, you're working about whether the role the team members are playing are delivered. So they're functional one, and one is business minded,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of simplification you can do from a business front where the employment is sorted. So things that manage the employee life cycle, whether it's onboarding, whether it's leave management, attendance, like bring systems and structures in
Yeah.
place in
Yeah.
that area. So
Yeah.
those don't get you overwhelmed, and you can focus on delivering the job. So if
Yeah.
you simplify and build systems, structures, and frameworks around that, then your relationship as a line manager with your team member is about role and function delivery.
Yeah.
More of that and less of that.
Yeah. I also think, like, okay, there's all of this, but there's what's really important, and you touched on it in the beginning, right? Is the recognition that I'm a business owner, but I'm responsible for these people. And a lot of
Yeah.
business owners bring on a team, and then they just think that the team will sort of organize themselves and start delivering.
Yeah.
I'll get a salesperson, I'll get an operations person, and I'll get maybe a customer service person, and together they will figure it out. And it's very interesting that if you don't put these systems and processes in place, even communication between three people can, and if it's not done right, rather, can lead to so much time wastage, as opposed to spending that time to actually, come up with a clear process that works across everyone.
Yeah.
And I think, like, as the team grows, sometimes what happens is it becomes a very us versus them. Like the sales team will say, yeah, but we passed on the lead to, operations. And then operations will try to get defensive about their team. And in this case, the importance, and here's where that, there's a thin line between being a business owner and a line manager, is you have to get people together to say there's no, like, we are all in it together.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to that communication where you are saying, we're all working towards the same goal, right? So these are all like different pieces of a puzzle that come together, and they come together by design, not by default.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key things to remember as a business owner, also being a line manager, is that you need to focus on designing this environment, designing this business that you're coming through. You have it, you have a vision, you have it in your mind. Articulate that.
Yeah.
Next is, how does the employee, now that they know about it, how are they going to help deliver it? So put systems in place, clarify what their roles are, like job descriptions, things like that.
Yeah.
How do each of them work, and how do they work and rely on each other? Build, operating procedures around it. And we reserve these sort of frameworks and structures to large organizations. And I think as small business, we do ourselves a little disservice by
Correct.
not, adopting. It doesn't have to be as elaborate as a large organization, but a department
Or as complex,
as
rather.
complex
Yeah.
either. Like an admin person might be doing admin as well as, let's say, customer service.
Yeah.
But they're two different roles that one person is doing.
Yeah.
We need to like start recognizing that this is one person maybe, but they're doing two roles.
Yeah.
So for this role, how do they do that? And for the other role, how do they? So that way, that person knows, okay, I'm now wearing an admin hat and I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And now
Yeah.
I'm wearing customers. This is the procedure I have to follow.
Yeah.
So they're not overlapped. So the more you make these things simple for the employee, the easier it is for them to just, run with it.
Yeah.
And you're right in saying, like, breakdown in communication, you don't need a large team for that.
Yeah.
It can happen between two people even. Like,
Yeah.
misunderstandings can happen,
Yeah.
conflict can happen. And very soon you realize, like, oh, I don't have the right team with me. And that's maybe not the case.
Exactly.
The right team is also success of the team also relies on you. And that's something that you have to own as
Yeah.
well as a line manager and as a business owner, that my team can only be as successful as I provide that environment for them.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That does not mean that, putting a foosball in the office or having
A pool table.
or PlayStation or, all of these things that you see in a startup world. They're great, but they're not the problem solvers. you
Yeah.
know. The problem solvers is real conversations, real work that
Yeah.
needs to be done.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of differentiate that. If you have a welcoming environment where you are genuinely relying on your team to deliver your vision, then you provide that experience
Yeah,
to them,
yeah.
that environment to them. And then that doesn't happen by foosballs and all. And I'm sure a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this, but a fancy office doesn't mean a great office. The service is not good, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Speaking of startups, I remember I did this post on LinkedIn where I talked about how in startups, HR is an afterthought.
Yeah.
Like they'll have, when they assemble the founding team, there will be a CEO, a COO, CMO, CFO, and all of those are essential. But there will never be a chief of HR, right? Or even someone, it doesn't even have to be a full-time chief of HR, but there's no one leading the people agenda.
No recognition even,
Correct.
right? Sometimes.
Yet, if you ask them what's your greatest asset, all of them will say it's our people. Right? But so the point of the post was to sort of question, why is this the case? Because if this is happening every time, there must be a reason. And I remember one gentleman, and I think he was an experienced startup serial entrepreneur. He replied to say, look, we're all experienced HR people, like we're all experienced leaders. So we don't need to add another headcount or another person to tell us how to lead people, because we're all well experienced.
Yeah.
And yes, in principle,
Yes.
it's probably that's what they think.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, right, there's 5 different experiences or 6 different experiences of how to lead people. And if there is not one person bringing all of that together to say, how are we going to unify it So CEO will have a different culture experience or want a culture within the organization. COO might have in his experience had a different have a different view about what culture should look like.
Okay.
CMO and so on,
Yeah.
so forth. But if there's not one person bringing them all together to say, right, how do we intentionally design the culture of this organization, then it's just going to be like, chaos eventually. And so the recognition that you need that support, that HR support to inform the employee experience, and very often that experience is through line managers, because again, you can put all of these beautiful systems and processes and create a welcoming experience on paper, but ultimately when you are, as an employee, when you go to your workplace on day one and your line manager is not telling you or not sort of guiding that experience, you're lost.
Completely.
Right?
And everybody is a line manager, and I'm glad that person recognizes that they have to lead their people, because oftentimes some line managers don't acknowledge that, and they think they have to deliver the work without the people management is someone else's.
Yeah.
This one was somebody that was recognizing, look, we all manage people, but we all have our own style of managing people, right? And that will lead to non-cohesive sort of culture.
Correct.
So then you are going to have even more concentration of this department-led culture rather than an organization-led culture. And when it's a department-led culture, it might flourish within that department as that department grows, but very soon you'll see breakdowns in communication, as well as conflict between departments, bottlenecks rising, and eventually your customer will sense it because they're not getting that experience. They'll be passed on from department to department, and we've been there, right? As customers, we've seen that firsthand. And then some news article will come in about something that is not working in that system. Like, startups are very vulnerable to this, and and are not insulated in any way, because they rely on customer acquisition to be able to get more funding.
Absolutely.
So that relationship is very intertwined. So like very soon you'll realize that if the organization is not got the right culture, got a cohesive culture, got a single message that everybody's rallying after, you'll start experiencing the breakdown from the outside, even if you don't recognize it.
Yeah. So, let's say, what are the 5 things that every business owner / line manager can do, or they need in their toolkit to be able to lead a team successfully, just from a line management perspective?
So communication tools and communication that's a key skill set.
I think, let's go one level down, right?
Okay.
So I think, for instance, setting very clear expectations from day one is very important. So if you can sit down with your new team member and say, this is what I expect you to deliver, and have a discussion on what tools do you need to make that happen, that's an absolute basic.
And then because you work in an ambiguous environment, that means you work in a very dynamic space. So being able to adapt to change and make the message even clearer that change is happening, change is coming, what that change is very important. So you may set expectations at once, but be prepared and ready to have to adapt to that expectations, because the outside environment will, kind of inform it. Second, so change management is the second skill set. And change management is not the transformative change management. It could happen at a transactional level as well. And it will be transformative as a small business because you're a small business.
Correct. But if you go back even further, right? Like, the line manager role in the hiring process also is extremely crucial, right?
This is very true.
If you have to make sure that you are prepared to ask the right questions, to elicit, to get the best out of the candidate.
Yeah, and I think when you do the hiring, right, that is a separate toolkit, like a sub toolkit within a toolbox, right? So that hiring skill set is very important. So you should be able to understand that you're hiring for a role, but you're hiring a person.
Exactly.
So make sure that you're not hiring the person without the role, and not, and vice versa in that way. So you have to be very clear what the role is and what is that person fit that I need for that role and for my team. So your questions, your
Yeah.
hiring techniques need to kind of need to be based on that.
Yeah.
So, that is important. So you have to have a strong set of hiring tools to be able to hire the right candidate and give recruitment process its due time
Yeah.
in terms of like reading the CVs,
So prepare
interviewing,
essentially.
prepare as
Yeah.
well as perform at the interview just as much as the candidate
Yeah.
has to perform, because this person is going to be
Your team
your
member.
team member.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So
So
we've
yeah,
start, we've
we
done
talked about hiring, we've talked about
we've
communicating,
talked about preparing, like setting
setting
expectations. Then we
expectations.
talked about navigating ambiguity.
Correct.
What else? Two
And
more. We said two more, but of course we can do more.
yeah. So I think also what is important is to build relationships with your team on a one-to-one basis. So
Yes.
your one-to-one relationship
Yes.
is so important.
Yeah.
Because what you might get in a weekly team meeting versus a monthly team meeting versus the morning dash and so on, each have serve its own purpose, but that one-to-one meeting has a different purpose.
Also, I
And
think
they're not to be substituted.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of, when you talk about having these one-to-ones, in small teams, line managers tend to say, like, I see him all the
All the time.
time. Like, I know what he's doing. I
Yeah.
know what's going on. We're always like, I don't need one more meeting
One.
to add to the gazillion meetings I already have. But like you said, it's like having that structured conversation communicates that, look, I'm serious about ensuring that you succeed. This is your opportunity for us to kind of have a very what's the word, like, you're not disturbed, uninterrupted conversation, just focused on how are we progressing, what are you doing, like what do you need to start, stop, continue, what are the what is blocking you from achieving what we want you to achieve, and also how are you doing, like your health, your mental health.
Yeah, and I think you have to recognize that those days are in the past, where you could say, "Oh, you're coming to work, so you need to be in the frame of mind, and all other matters you need to leave outside the door." A lot of times when I was, right in the beginning when I started employment, they would say like, "Your personal matters are to be left at the door when you start work." You can't really do that. You're a human being, right? Nobody, even the line manager, cannot do it for themselves. Like, I don't know if one has tried and been successful. Please let us know, because I have not come across anybody like that. So it's important to recognize that their personal issues have an influence and impact on the results on the work front. And we're not saying by asking about it that you're going to provide a solution, or you need to provide a solution even. It's about being heard.
Yes,
And being heard and being understood in that way.
And
so
showing empathy.
Showing empathy, important as ever. So being that person that they can come to, confide, and not necessarily, set an expectation that I'm going to clear everything for you, I'm going to solve all your problems. You're not. You should have that ability to ask the employee, what help do I need? What can I do? And be very clear. Set that expectation, saying, look, this is what I can offer you, and this is what I'm saying I still expect from you. I understand and empathize what you're going through. So let's try and figure out how you can still deliver on what needs to be delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, especially in a small business, it's challenging to manage operations and be a line manager, because often people see that as two different things, right? And they're like, how do I do all of this when I'm running the operations, and it's a small business, so there's only one of me? How do you think how do you think they can prepare? Hang on, before that, did we finish our 5 points?
No, we didn't. We have to
did
go back.
four,
We
right?
did 4. We
Sorry.
have to do the 5th one.
Okay.
And I think maybe the 5th one is perhaps something that you just started off in, is focusing on being very organized.
Yeah.
Because your chaos will become the team's chaos, and organized in your thoughts, organized on the way you manage your team, and organized in the way that you have time for surprises as well. Because you hopefully have reached a point where we're not talking about those skills where you have to be delegating and not micromanaging. this should be something that is inherent now as a business owner. At least, something that people should recognize by now, that I can't run a business micromanaging every team member. That's not the one-to-one we're talking about. We're talking about one-to-one in the sense of how to progress rather than how to progress or prevent rather than how to, control.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's...
I like that. How to progress versus how to control.
Exactly.
And those are very
two
very different outlooks, right? And that kind of sort of makes me think of like line manager red flags.
Yeah, I think red flags, green flags will be a great way to navigate this topic. So red flags. Let's start with the micromanaging.
Yeah, that's a definite red flag.
Being a control freak, as people say, right? Trying to control every outcome, trying to control every step. That's micromanaging, and control is almost there.
I also know one more. So I think like some managers are very temperamental. Their personal mood reflects, suddenly they're very excited and they're like, great job, you did well. And then 2 seconds later, suddenly they're like, very negative in how they approach something. So
you never do anything right.
Yeah, exactly. So as an employee, you don't know which line manager you're going to get. And so that's a huge red flag. Right?
Jekyll and Hyde in one line manager.
If you know someone's just going to be tough with you, that's almost easier than the unpredictableness of having, like an amazing day and a not so amazing day, because you just don't know where you stand.
Yeah. So I think, before you come to work, probably that's a great time to just reflect and saying, how am I going to show up today for my team?
Yeah.
And, what behaviors do I need? Because everything has to be conscious.
Yeah.
Because you have got 5 eyes looking at you, and you're just one person. So their observations is a lot stronger than your observation about 5 people. So you have to,
5 people. I was trying to think.
5
eyes. Which person has only one?
5 people.
5 people. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
So, that's something you have to think about before you come to work, is like how you're going to show up for your team.
Yeah.
And what version of me will bring out the best in my team.
What's a green flag? A line manager green flag?
A line manager green flag, acceptance of, not knowing everything and asking the team members like, okay, how do you think we should do that? That's a green flag. Giving employees to make mistakes, opportunities to make mistakes under, and to know that they can come to you if they have faltered.
I think, speaking of making mistakes, I think in Google, if I'm not mistaken, they expect you to not achieve a certain percentage of your goals because those are stretch goals, and they're stretched to such an extent that they're like, okay, we know that this percentage you're not going to hit it. I think it's Google, and I may be oversimplifying. Okay. But the point of it is like they give you this canvas to make mistakes. Although I think it's a bit challenging to do that in a small business environment because,
it hits the bottom line quite very strongly.
But the principle of it is, I think encourage experimentation within limit.
Within limits,
Or if someone has made a mistake that was not intentional, or that it's not intentional, that find a way to get past it. I remember I had this amazing boss who said to me, I will always support you if I know that you did something with the information available to you at that time, even if it's wrong, but just come and tell me. So if I went to him and said, listen, this is what happened, this is what I knew, and this is what I recommended, and it was wrong, he would not be upset, He would be like, okay, fine, how do we move forwards from this? And so it just allowed me, I just knew he was always in my corner no matter what. Not that he'd let it slide every single time, not that I made so many mistakes, but I just felt comfortable to
yes.
And that really makes a difference,
I think that's, that comfort is a green flag, right? Being comfortable to approach your lineman, being approachable.
Being approachable,
is that green flag. And being, doesn't mean that, in the past, used to say like, oh, my door is always open.
Open door policy.
Open door policy. But but that person comes in, you're still distracted, you're still, not paying
Yeah.
attention. Your open door means that what exactly, you need to be a bit more clear in what you're expecting. So I think being approachable,
Yeah.
and giving time for that. So everything does not have to be instantly solved either.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't need to be instantly sorted out, and everything doesn't have to be crisis. Like if a line manager constantly is in crisis mode, then that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Like everything is now, everything is urgent.
Yeah.
That's not how work should be
Yeah.
carried out.
Another thing I learned through my own experience as being a line manager is that your team does not all perform to the same standard. Like their pace of performance is different. So as a line manager, you have to adapt your management style to them rather than everyone adapting their style to you, because I just think it just brings out the best in people that way. I remember being part of a team where there was one star performer, or would always exceed her performance, or perform whatever you asked, it was done. And she would always be the, oh, look at her and she's so great. And and it's not that the others were bad, they just couldn't keep up with her, but they just were made to feel like they were incapable and not willing, less than, exactly. And if the line manager had recognized that their performance style is different, I think she would have had a much better outcome out of that scenario.
Yeah, and sometimes that person who's being your highest performer suddenly might also feel like they have to continuously perform, and that's not the pressure that will bring them. There could be burnouts in the end as well.
Yeah.
So you have to also manage that performance to give that person that respite needed from time to time as well. So
Yeah.
managing based on the pace of your team, I think, will bring the best outcome.
Yeah.
And that's why these one-to-ones are very important, because you understand those deep-rooted behaviors and beliefs that they work with. And I go back to this point in Dubai, if you're a startup and a small business, you have a diverse team. So you don't have
or you should have a diversity.
and you should have a diversity. Yeah. Something very strongly we encourage in any situations is you have to have a diverse team, because that's what you'll get the best out of the city. If you're dedicating, your customers are in here and they're diverse, then your team has to be diverse. Correct. As well. So that way they understand everything. And when you have a diverse team, your set of beliefs and their set of inherent beliefs are very different.
Exactly.
So unless you talk it out and understand each other's perspective to come to a consensus of sorts, it's always going to be further future conflicts and future issues.
This reminds me of an experience I had where we had a new line manager. It wasn't my team, it was a team I was working with, but we were all seated in the same office. And the gentleman who was leading the team was of a certain nationality, and he had a new boss that was of a different nationality. And I think in her second or third week, she sent an email to him and his team. And she said, like, this is what I need from you, and I need to have it by close of we are playing. It was a language thing and he didn't understand. He's like, we are working so hard here. I have been working, and he was in his 60s. So he's like, I have been working so hard, and she comes 2 weeks. She's not even here for 2 weeks, and she is thinking we are playing. He was so offended, right? And then, we had to explain to him to say, no, that's not what it means. She doesn't think you're playing at all. So diversity, makes such a it contributes to so much, but it also, if not paid attention to, or if you're not conscious that there is diversity, it can also lead to all kinds of misunderstandings. Definitely. And things like that.
And all the more reason that we spoke about, like, having unified culture is so important, because they can all then align themselves regardless of what cultural background they come from. They all align themselves to one organizational culture.
Yeah, exactly. And a key role of a line manager is to maintain this, like, employee morale, and keep the team engaged. And in larger organizations, there's like budgets allocated for this. But in smaller organizations, there isn't. You just don't have
It's not
that.
enough to go around for these
Exactly.
activities.
So, like, how can line managers ensure that they support the team from that perspective, like from an employee engagement perspective?
See, employee engagement can operate at many levels, right? And not everything has to be something that you have to put money towards. Say an appreciation, a recognition
Yeah.
of a genuine pat on the back in a team meeting or in a huddle or something
Yeah.
goes a long way than complete absence of anything. So, use what you have in you still have a set of toolkit tools
Yeah.
to use: appreciation notes, recognition notes, simple, acts of like sharing good feedback. If a client has given
Yeah.
great feedback, share it with the team. Let the team know how well somebody is doing. So,
Yeah.
encourage others to appreciate them as well. So that's also something that can be done. These all things help morale. Give opportunities to, let loose some days. Like, change the atmosphere by saying,
Yeah.
okay, today we're going to be casual,
Yeah.
rather than
Or
have a
it
formal day.
recognizing different festivals.
Different festivals,
Yeah.
they each person having, use the international calendar, like International Day or Women's Day, and do something within whatever
Yeah.
the team can do. They all would, so it's being creative
Yeah.
rather than looking at what I don't have versus what can I use.
Yeah. 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 Also, things like employee of the month, you think it's cliche, but it's so, like, it makes
Oh,
someone feel
yes.
so good when they have been picked, because you have still been picked from,
You are chosen.
chosen. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's other things to think about there in terms of like making sure the criteria is fair, and
Yeah.
not picking your favorite, and it's a fair sort of selection of the employee of the month. But things like that, those initiatives are always. Oh, birthdays. Sorry, birthdays is another one. I didn't even complete my last sentence, but yeah, birthdays is another one. Making someone feel special on their birthday.
Remember the
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah.
You don't even have to bring a cake, but like so many line managers don't even take that opportunity
Bring a
to,
cupcake,
yeah,
something.
bring a cupcake, bring a donut, bring something. It's just little things that matter.
Yeah.
And that's how you build. And as your company grows, like, be open to having other initiatives and start doing things like Dubai has, like, in the fitness challenge in Dubai,
Yes.
like, work with that app,
Participate in that.
participate that, get your team,
30 by 30, it's
30
called.
by
Yeah.
30. Like, these sort of events have been created that we can all, jump on. There's zero in effort to be, coming up with what to do, because it's
Yeah.
already done for you. So, like, use these opportunities and do that. Fun walks, runs, go as a team, do those type of things that
Yeah.
are easy and accessible and affordable and,
Doable.
doable,
Yeah.
and with the same amount of ROI, if not more sometimes, because
Yes.
you've zero investment.
Yeah.
So greater ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward, then looking ahead, what how do you see the role of line managers evolving, or do you see the role of line managers evolving?
I think there is still the line managers have been there for a long time, and I think they will continue to be there to a certain extent, but I don't think they will be in this, like, the traditional line manager will be evolving, because a lot of, the gig economy is growing. There's a lot of people that are independent employees. They're not associated by employment, but they're associated by the contribution of
Yeah.
work. So that brings different relationships at play. There's a lot of hybrid working styles that are
Yeah.
happening. There's working remote is also there. So how you manage your relationship as with your team members in multi environments will also will tell you that you need to upgrade your toolkit and your
Yeah.
toolbox accordingly.
That's actually a great point. Like, how do you manage, or what tips can we share for managing teams remotely?
I think you have to rely on so much more on communication, transparency,
Like digital
get
tools.
familiar with digital tools, be open to, using the digital tools to be the way that you communicate, and,
Yeah.
get comfortable with it. Because being shy of digital tools, or, remote working, just because you're not comfortable with it, you're losing an opportunity to get the right team sometimes, because they might flourish better in that environment.
Yeah.
I think being open to change in the business, change in the way your team behaves. And then the Gen Z is already started joining us in the organizations, right?
Yeah.
And they bring a different set of skills and a
Yeah.
different set of challenges and a different set of expectations from what they seek. So, you have to learn how to start working with that new generation.
Yeah.
So I think as a line manager, I don't think there's a single day where is not a learning day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we can talk about, line management for a very long time. Maybe we should do like a line manager school, the essential skills of a line manager.
School of line managers.
School of line management. But anyways, okay, let's do our rapid fire wrap up.
Okay.
5 key takeaways from the conversation.
So build a toolbox that has all the tools that you need to hire, manage, and retain your team.
Yeah. Have clear systems and processes to support you to be a great line manager, and invest the time in developing it at the onset, as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel at all times.
Yes. Be creative in the way you look at how to engage and build the morale of your team, and look for opportunities to use what you have, as opposed to look for opportunities what you don't have. And don't compare yourself to large organizations.
Yeah. You recognize that the experience that you give your employee is essentially their whole employment experience. So you can have a bright, shiny, fancy office, but if you're not a great line manager, and if employees are not valuing that experience, then that's they're just not going to be engaged, and you don't even want to start understanding the costs of what that would be to your business.
True. And I think the one that I think of is, be conscious of how you show up for your team. Learn to prepare to adapt, learn to be open to new ways of managing your team, and learn from your team of how they want you to manage them.
Yeah, I think that's a great rapid fire conclusion. Rapid fire wrap up.
Oh, wow, that's going to be a tongue twister.
That's a tongue twister. Okay, well, that's all of our discussion today on line manager essentials. I hope you've had some great insights and some key takeaways that you can directly apply in your management style straight away. Line management can make a significant difference to your business success if you look at it that way. Thank you, as always, for watching and tuning in to Unlock HR with the D'Souza sisters. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe, like button and the bell icon so that you never miss our next episode. We have one more to go in this season.
And today's session about line management, I'm really sure that there's going to be a lot of buzz in the comment section, so I can't wait to read them.
Yep, leave us your feedback. Tell us what else we can touch on to make your journey as a business owner, as a small business owner, startup entrepreneur, more effective when it comes to all things people. Until the next episode, keep leading with confidence and keep inspiring. See you next time.
Ciao.
Ciao. As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend a huge thank you to our sponsor, Pacific Prime Insurance Brokers. With 19 offices globally, Pacific Prime are an award-winning, trusted insurance partner for businesses and individuals requiring any type of insurance solution. They specialize in providing unbiased and reliable insurance advice to simplify your process of finding the right insurance solutions for your business and your employees. So whether you need comprehensive medical coverage or any other insurance solution, their 150-member team in Dubai alone are always ready to assist you. You can check the show notes below for a link to their website and a dedicated email address just for you to reach out to them.